Scott from Edge Specialist Advice Network. I hope you're all well. Today, I'm in the article below. I really want you to read this, and I didn't write this article. I stole the bottom half of it from Chris Campbell, who's someone that I do follow overseas, and so really interesting thoughts on inflation. Now, inflation is what we've all heard this word inflation, and so I guess even the taxi drivers and the hairdressers, know about inflation. Look, I love taxi drivers, I love hairdressers, but we use that analogy to call it the man on the street. And so when the man on the street starts having conversations with you about inflation, you know that finally this concept and feeling this throughout their lives has actually hit home, and people are smart enough to understand, or at least repeat the word inflation. Look, inflation is a quiet thief. Inflation is a tax on everyone, and inflation is really a feature of the monetary system that's built in the fractional banking reserve. So inflation always exists because you can keep and continually print money out of thin air. Therefore, there's more money chasing fewer goods, which creates inflation. And so until this monetary system collapses, which actually happens there's a change every 40 to 70 years. We're probably overdue, and I don't think people want this one to fail. People will be too fearful of what's down the pipeline. We have to deal with inflation. We have to deal with it in our lives, in our spending, in our income, but also in our investing. So inflation really, I'm looking at some of the reports in the US. They're saying that it's got a 6 in front of it. In Australia, we've still got a 7 in front of it. In Latin America, it depends which country. Argentina, 100% inflation. Mexico was up pretty high. I think it was up around 10. It might have come back a bit. In Europe and Eurasia, some of those numbers have been pretty high as well. So this is a good indication, of when we have money in the bank. If inflation in Australia is running at 7% and it's going to continue to run at 7%, which I think it probably will, the real numbers, not the doctored, adjusted, stripped out numbers, run at 7%. So the $100,000 I have in the bank getting no percent interest, and inflation runs at 7%. If we go back and use our rule of 72, it means that how long will it take for my $100,000 to be worth half? A little bit, 10 years. So in 10 years' time, it'll be worth $50,000. So that's pretty bad. It's not obviously not an investment, but it's also not a safe place to park your money if you want it to retain your borrowing power. And this email isn't about that. I actually want you to read the excerpt from Chris Campbell. I find it quite funny, but I also want to ask everyone, how is it that the authors of Days Gone By, the authors of the 50s, 60s and 70s were time travelers? This excerpt comes from Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy. If you haven't read that book, you should read it, amongst a whole lot of other books you should read. But in this section, the ancient ancestors come back to Earth and impart their wisdom. And there's some problems on Earth, and what they do is they decide that leaves off trees, would become currency. That would be the new money. So money doesn't grow on trees, but in this instance, it did. And it's when you look backwards, it's quite satirical, right? But in the story, that for the first couple of years, it was amazing. They solved all the problems. Everyone was so wealthy. They're walking around, they're stuffing their clothes and clothes full of leaves, strutting around like they're all kings. But what happens when you just print money or grow money off trees? Well, you have this mega inflation, and soon, as the story progresses, eventually you need a whole field of trees and all their leaves just to buy a peanut or a bag of chips. All right, so you have this hyperinflation, and it's an amazing story and I guess when they wrote this, they would look backwards at maybe the Weimar Republic before World War II. So there's hyperinflations often lead to wars, and fingers crossed we don't have that again. But this is amazing to go back and see, and with the knowledge that we all have now, to go back and understand what they were giving us tales as learning lessons. And so they had this hyperinflation. And so what did they do? Or what did the ancient ancestors of Earth that came back started this new system where leaves were becoming currency, and they had this hyperinflation, and so no one could buy anything because you had to chop down all the forest to get a few little bits and pieces. They decided that the best way to do that was burn the entire currency. So burn all the forests, start again, get rid of it. It was going to burn the whole lot, so nobody has money. So we're going to make money very, very scarce, so it has some sort of value again. All right, that was their idea, and of course it's satirical. But is there any echoes in what we're seeing come through? Yeah, I think Banking of International Settlements, the US settlements, the US Fed, the UK Fed, the Japanese Fed. I would think that in part they decided that they could burn down the printing press and they could retract the money supply, which by design causes inflation, causes unemployment, and in some way is supposed to, the theoretical textbook version is supposed to bring prices down, or at least reverse inflation a little bit to where it's manageable, acceptable, and the citizens won't notice, and therefore there won't be rioting. In other countries, not Australia, we don't do that. We just get what we're given. So, guys, read the excerpt. It's actually quite hilarious for those of us with a bent on history, but also that can look at the financial world and try and predict what's coming up. That's our job. That's what we do. And then I advise you to go back and read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Anyway, guys, that's enough from me. Just thought that was a bit humorous, and we needed a bit of a smile on our faces today. Well, life is a family sport. Give yours an edge. See ya.